Mom, help me. What's wrong? What about the field trip? I don't want to go. My daughter had come home crying, even though she had left for the field trip with a smile on her face. I was so shocked to see her back that my mind went blank for a moment. Seeing her distress, I gently asked, "What happened, sweetie?" At the same time, a new question popped into my head. How did you get back home? Today, they were supposed to take a bus from school to the amusement park. There's no way she could have returned home in just 2 hours after leaving. Then, between sobs, my daughter slowly answered, "I came by car. They told me to get out right in front of our house." A car. I raised my voice in surprise. Was it someone you know? It was Dad. What? I couldn't stand still any longer and called my husband. Hello? What's going on? Huh? What are you talking about? Ivy is back home. I don't know anything about that. The call was abruptly ended. Filled with anger, I clenched my fists. Can you tell me what happened? Yes. Look in my backpack. I did as she said and found the contents in a terrible state. The lunchbox I had packed with her favorite foods had opened, spilling its contents everywhere. Not only that, but the juice I had put in her water bottle was completely gone. Did Dad do this too? Yes, he did. I left Ivy with a friend and headed to my husband's workplace. As I thought about how my daughter's long-awaited field trip had been ruined, I knew I couldn't forgive this. Then, I forcefully opened the door to my husband's office. What was about to begin was a battle of revenge, all in the name of protecting my daughter. I'm Scarlett, a stay-at-home mom in my 30s. I live with my husband Zion and our 6-year-old daughter Ivy. However, Ivy isn't Zion's biological daughter, she's my child from a previous marriage. Why don't you consider remarrying? Or are you still not over him? For years before I married Zion, I had lost my first husband in a car accident. My mother was worried about me and encouraged me to remarry, but I couldn't think about it positively at the time. Back then, I was working as a contract office worker, just trying to maintain a life for my daughter and me. That's when I met Zion. You've been working too much lately, haven't you? Always staying late. It's normal for me. I'm fine. I'm worried about you. Let me help so we can finish early. Zion had just transferred to our company, but he was always kind to me. To be honest, I had been trying to avoid getting involved with men at that time. The reason I couldn't push him away completely was that Zion reminded me of my late husband. You don't need to pay so much attention to me, you know. Why not? What do you mean, why not? Because I like you, Scarlett. Ha! I let out a strange sound, surprised by his sudden confession. But I'm a divorcee. That doesn't matter to me. Even with a child. There was a brief pause, and I thought I saw Zion's eyebrow twitch. That's fine. My heart wavered. I was happy, but it felt irresponsible to give an answer right away. I can't give you an answer right now. I understand. I'll wait as long as it takes. When I got home, I was torn about what to do. Later, I made a proposal. I asked him to meet my daughter first. I thought if my daughter accepted him, I would say yes to his confession. Hello. You must be Ivy. Yes, I'm Ivy. Nice to meet you. The following weekend, the three of us went out together. Their relationship deepened more than I had expected, almost like a real parent and child. Seeing this, I felt reassured and gave my answer. About your confession, if you're okay with me, I'd be happy to accept. Really? That's wonderful. And so we started dating. 6 months later, we got married. I was thrilled about our new life together, but marriage doesn't always go as ideally as we hope. Our new life began in a rented house. My daughter seemed happy too, so I felt relieved. However, that was only at the beginning. Now that we're married, I'd like you to become a full-time housewife. What? Why so suddenly? Well, I think it would be better for Ivy. But Ivy is starting elementary school this year. My husband then showed an irritated expression. Besides, it's not good for us to work at the same company, right? There's the issue of what others might think. I guess that's true, but... So, please do this for me. After that, the irritated look on his face disappeared, and he spoke to me with a smile. Since we had just gotten married and I didn't want to argue, I accepted my husband's proposal. From this point on, our relationship gradually became worse. I'm going to the hair salon for a bit. Could you look after Ivy? Yes, sure. Okay, I'll be back soon. Have a good time. And so I left. It was the first time since our marriage that my husband and daughter would be alone together. I was a bit anxious, but I thought they had already built a good relationship, so it would be fine. When I returned home about 2 hours later, the house was strangely quiet. I'm home. But there was no response from either of them. Finding this odd, I immediately went to the living room. There, I found my daughter lying on the sofa. Ivy. Oh, Mom. Thank goodness. I collapsed in relief. It seemed my daughter had just been sleeping. Where's Dad? There was no sign of my husband in the house. He told me to stay home and went somewhere. What? I immediately called my husband, but he didn't answer. About an hour later. I'm home. I rushed to the entrance. Where have you been? Oh, I just went for a walk. What? Leaving our daughter alone. Don't get so angry. Ivy was sleeping, and I just needed a little break. However, I didn't miss a certain change in my husband. You smell pretty good for just having gone on a walk. My husband had a sweet floral scent, like body soap. Ha! You must be imagining things. Saying this, my husband immediately went to the bedroom. When he came out, he had changed his clothes. He probably did it to get rid of the smell. Even though we had only been married for a short time, I started to think the worst. Why did you change your clothes? I got sweaty. Anyway, I'm hungry. From this time on, I began to harbor suspicions about my husband. He started to avoid us, and it pained me to see my daughter looking lonely. It seemed my daughter felt the same way, as young as she was, and sometimes showed concern for me. "Mom, are you okay? What's wrong?" "I'm fine." "That's good. Were you worried about me?" "Thank you." I gently hugged my daughter. In the midst of this difficult situation, my daughter's smile was the only thing that made me happy. It was my sole comfort. And then I experienced the greatest anger I had ever felt. It happened one night. I woke up suddenly and noticed my husband wasn't beside me. I was thirsty and headed to the kitchen. Then I heard my husband's voice. It seemed he was on the phone with someone. "Yes, that's right. Man, I'm tired. I shouldn't have married someone with a kid." She was pretty for her age, so I went along with it, but the content was shocking. I stood there, frozen. My husband had been cold towards my daughter, but I never thought it was this bad. His complaints continued. "Yes, that's right. I wonder what I should do now." "What?" "No, that's going too far, isn't it?" I didn't know what they were talking about, but it couldn't be anything good. And lately, she's not getting close to me anymore. It really pisses me off. Maybe I need to show her who's boss. I was surprised that he harbored such terrible feelings towards my daughter, but more than that, I felt my hatred towards my husband growing. I thought about going out there and confronting him, but I held back. Instead, I decided to try and record the conversation as evidence. I went to get my smartphone. When I returned to the living room door, he was still laughing and mocking us. Unforgivable. This is how I recorded the conversation as evidence. "Well, I'm going to bed now. Talk to you later." I hurried back to bed. I spent the night unable to sleep. The problem wasn't just my husband. My mother-in-law was also a significant issue. "Scarlett, isn't it about time you considered living with us?" "I'm sorry, but we don't have any plans for that at the moment." "Has your husband agreed to this?" "I'll talk to him later." Sigh, and to think we allowed the marriage to a divorced woman with a child. Besides, Zion doesn't seem interested in the idea either. That's because you're saying all sorts of things to him. My mother-in-law thought I had taken her beloved son away from her. However, my husband also seemed a bit fed up with his overprotective mother. She had initially said living together as a condition for allowing our marriage. But it was my father-in-law who stopped that. This happened when we went to greet them before our marriage. There's no need to make the young ones live with us old folks. That's not the point. Mom, be quiet for a moment. What's important is how these two feel. Zion, what do you think? Well, it might be an option in the future, but right now, I want to live just the three of us as a family. Then it's settled. Zion has spoken, so it's fine, right, Mom? If that's what Zion wants. And so we got married and started our life as a family of three, but now I no longer had the hope I did back then. I never imagined something like this would happen. Here you go. What's this? My daughter handed me a notice when she came home from school. A field trip. That sounds nice. Yes, I'm so excited. She looked genuinely happy. Seeing her face like that made me happy too. Just then, my husband came home. What are you two looking so happy about? Ivy has a field trip coming up. Oh. Where to? Let's see. It looks like an amusement park in the neighboring state. Ah, that big one. It felt like we had a pleasant family conversation for the first time in a while. My daughter seemed satisfied to be able to talk with my husband with a smile. However, at this time, my husband was thinking of using my daughter's field trip for a terrible purpose. I'll be home late today, so don't worry about dinner for me. My husband, who had been coming home late more often, seemed unusually happy when he returned. Did something good happen? Huh? Not really. I see. However, my husband smelled of that body soap-like scent again. I wanted my daughter to be able to go on her long-awaited field trip without any problems, so this time I chose to endure it. The day before my daughter's field trip. I'm home. Ah, I'm tired. You're late again today. What? Got a problem with that? That's not what I meant. Oh, right. I have to work in the afternoon tomorrow. I didn't question my husband's statement much at the time. Looking back, it was strange, but maybe it was because I had lost interest in my husband. And then came the day of the field trip. Ha! Zion, are you leaving already? I thought you had work in the afternoon today. Oh, yes. That was the plan, but something came up. So I'm heading out early. Saying this, my husband hurriedly left for work. He seemed a bit flustered, but my attention quickly turned to my daughter. Do you have everything? Yes, I do. All right then, have a great time and be careful. I'm off. She left with a beaming smile. My daughter had been looking forward to this field trip ever since it was announced. Although she had seemed a bit down lately, probably because of my husband, I thought she would be fine now. But I was wrong. About 2 hours after my daughter left, I was thinking she must be at the amusement park and having fun by now. Then I heard the sound of the door opening. When I went to the entrance, I saw my daughter standing there. Mom, help me. What? What's wrong? What about the field trip? I don't want to go. I knew something was seriously wrong. The smile I had seen this morning was gone, replaced by big tears rolling down her cheeks. I couldn't understand why she was home, and for a moment, my mind went blank trying to process what was happening. Seeing her state, I gently asked, "Let's go inside first." Okay. I sat my daughter on the sofa and checked her over, but she didn't seem to be injured anywhere. At the same time, a new question came to mind. How did you get back home? Today, they were supposed to take a bus from the school to the amusement park. There's no way she could have walked back from the amusement park. Then, between sobs, my daughter slowly answered. I came by car. They made me get out right in front of our house. A car. I raised my voice in surprise. Was it someone you know? It was Dad. What? I couldn't stand still any longer and called my husband. Hello. What's going on? Huh? What are you talking about? Ivy is back home. I don't know anything about that. The call was abruptly ended. Filled with anger, I clenched my fists. Can you tell me what happened? Yes. Look in my backpack. I did as she said and found the contents in a terrible state. The lunchbox I had packed with her favorite foods had opened, spilling its contents everywhere. Not only that, but the juice I had put in her water bottle was completely gone. Did Dad do this too? Yes, he did. I left Ivy with a friend and headed to my husband's workplace. On the way, I got a call from the school. Is this Ivy's mother? Actually, is this about Ivy? The homeroom teacher who called sounded flustered. I had completely forgotten in my anger towards my husband, but of course they would be worried about my daughter's disappearance. Do you know something about this? She just came back home a little while ago. She's home. Then that was. The teacher seemed to know something about the situation. Do you have any idea what happened? Well, I heard from other students that a man took her away. I see. For now, my daughter is safe. I'm truly sorry for causing you trouble. I'm glad Ivy is safe. There's one more thing I'd like to ask. We talked a bit more before ending the call. The man the teacher mentioned was probably my husband. It seems my husband had done something even more terrible. Perhaps he had carried out what he had talked about on the phone before. Thinking about how my daughter's long-awaited field trip had been ruined, I couldn't forgive him. All right, let's do this. When I arrived in front of my husband's company, I took a deep breath. It had been a while since I'd been here. I knew where my husband's office was. Oh. Scarlett. The person who appeared was a former colleague from my contract work days. She was one of my few friends from that time. What brings you here today? Oh, well. Are you here to see your husband? Something like that. You two must still be so close. Well, I've got to go. My heart ached a little for my former colleague who didn't know the circumstances. However, having come this far, I couldn't back down. I forcefully opened the door to my husband's office. Everyone in the room turned to look at me. My husband was among them. Why are you here? My husband noticed me and approached. What are you doing here? This is my workplace. I came because I have something to discuss with you. This is a company. Go home. The office was in an uproar due to the unusual situation. I thought it wouldn't be bad to let everyone here know my husband's true nature. I'm here to talk about Ivy. We can do that at home, can't we? No. It has to be here. What? Stop talking nonsense. Everything you did to Ivy has been exposed. Then, a person emerged from the back of the office. It was the manager I used to work under. It's been a while. Yes, it has. Manager, please say something to her. The manager thought for a moment, then slowly spoke. No. I'll take responsibility for this. It's an urgent matter, right? Yes, it is. I answered confidently. First of all, why did you do such a thing? Such a thing. You messed up Ivy's backpack and brought her back home. There are witnesses too. My husband's face contorted for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. Ivy wasn't feeling well, so I just brought her home. Then why were you at the amusement park? It's her first amusement park trip since starting elementary school. I was just a bit worried. That's a lie, isn't it? What makes you say that? I just got a call from her teacher, and you weren't alone, were you? Everyone in the room became even more agitated. You don't have any proof, do you? It seemed my husband was determined to deny everything. At this point, I decided to play the recording I had made that day. Hey! What are you doing? I thought I'd see if you could still act so cool after hearing this. I played the recording. The content was as disgusting as ever. I could hear words like terrible and awful from those around us. Now my husband had nowhere to run. No, this is. That's right, I was just listening to a friend's problem. I wasn't planning to do anything to my daughter. Hearing this, I smirked. But the word daughter never came up in this conversation, did it? Oh. My husband had fallen into his own trap. Unable to bear the cold stares from those around him, my husband's attitude changed completely, and he started apologizing. This was something I was told to do. I was just following orders. Orders. That's right. It's my mother's fault, not mine. I was surprised that my mother-in-law was involved, but that didn't excuse my husband's actions. As I was thinking about what to do next, the manager made a suggestion. For now, you should take the rest of the day off. You can't work like this, can you? And don't come back to the office until everything is resolved. I thought this was a very good decision. All right, let's go. Go where? Just come with me. I forcefully pulled my husband's arm and left the office. Our destination was, of course, his parents' house. We got into my husband's car and drove off. During the ride, my husband looked anxious. He probably understood what was about to happen. We're here. After about an hour's drive, we finally arrived. I dragged my reluctant husband out of the car and headed for the entrance. Yes, who is it? My mother-in-law greeted us. It's been a while. Why are you here? We have an urgent matter to discuss. We're coming in. Saying this, I headed for the living room. I found my father-in-law reading a newspaper and greeted him. Hello, Father. It's been a while. What brings you here so suddenly? There's something I really need you to know. I see. I made my husband sit next to me and explained everything that had happened today. So, you two have been doing such things. Wait a minute. That's just this woman's delusion. I played the recording for my father-in-law as well. Then what's this about? Zion, answer me. This was a phone call with Mom. She told me that she didn't like Scarlett or Ivy and that I should teach them a lesson. I was just doing what Mom told me to do. I'm a victim too. My husband was desperately pleading with his father. However, my father-in-law continued speaking without so much as raising an eyebrow. Even if that's true, you had the choice to refuse. The fact that you didn't makes you just as guilty. Besides, you're the one who actually did it. My husband fell silent, confronted with this logical argument. What have you done? I did it for Zion and this family. Then my father-in-law let out a roar of anger like I'd never heard before. How could that possibly be true? What you two have done is the worst thing imaginable, something that could leave lifelong traumatic memories. Even my mother-in-law seemed unable to respond after being scolded so severely by her husband. Get out. What? I said get out of this house. But if we do that... If my daughter had been here, she would have undoubtedly burst into tears. That's how much intensity there was in his words. Mom, come on. Zion, wait a minute. My husband was pulling his mother's hand, clearly wanting to leave this place as quickly as possible. However, I wasn't about to let them escape so easily. I'm not finished talking yet. Ha! I got a call from Ivy's teacher, and you weren't alone, were you? Apparently, there are witnesses who saw you. I didn't do anything like that. Then prove it. If you can, that is. At this point, divorce is our only option, isn't it? Divorce? He clearly didn't expect me to say such a thing. He really is a hopeless man. If that's how it is, then we have no reason to hold back either. As I said before, you two will leave this house. And don't ever set foot in this house again. But I'm afraid you'll have to accept it. It's all your own fault, after all. It's because of this woman. Don't blame me for your actions. You two are entirely at fault here. In the end, my husband and mother-in-law were essentially disowned and kicked out of the house. My mother-in-law probably never imagined things would turn out like this. Just because she didn't like us, she ended up losing everything. They truly are a pitiful parent and child. Your real hell starts now. Was that okay? I answered my father-in-law's question. It was more than enough. Although I'm more worried about your wife than Zion. Leave that to me. She can't do anything now. You focus on Zion. If anything happens, don't hesitate to contact me. With that, I left my in-laws' house and went to pick up my daughter. Mom. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Shall we go home? I took my daughter to my parents' house for the time being. Even my mother was surprised, but after I explained the situation, she accepted everything. After that, I went to a lawyer's office to consult about divorcing my husband and his mistreatment of my daughter. I quickly prepared divorce papers and contacted my husband. Divorce papers should be arriving at your place soon. Take care of them, okay? Are you serious? Of course I am. And I'll be claiming compensation too. If you don't like that, then prove your innocence. Oh, and I'm also consulting with a lawyer about what you did to Ivy. So take care of that too. Hey, wait I hung up immediately. I'm done dealing with a husband like this. 2 weeks later, my divorce from my husband was finalized, and I was able to claim a substantial amount in compensation. As for my mother-in-law, it's all your fault that we're in this mess. That's entirely your own doing, isn't it? Why don't you stop blaming others? Shut up. You and your daughter can go to hell. I'll send those words right back at you. As expected, she contacted me. My mother-in-law was left speechless by my words. I hung up the phone, trying hard not to laugh, and blocked her number. A few months have passed since then. How are things on your end? Ivy and I are doing well. We'll come visit you soon. I see. I look forward to it. According to what I heard from my father-in-law, my ex-husband and his mother are living together now. Apparently, they're still fighting over who's to blame. They really are a hopeless pair. Well, they got what they deserved. It's going to be just the two of us again, sweetie. That's okay. As long as I'm with you, Mom. Thank you, honey. Although it's back to just my daughter and me, this turn of events was unavoidable. Staying with a husband like that would have been bad for my daughter's upbringing. From now on, I'm determined to live hand in hand with my daughter, just the two of us.